Coming up on MCTV this week, see how students on campus are speaking out to advocate the Black Lives Matter movement and seek some of the events of homecoming weekend. This week starts now. Hello and welcome to MCTV this week. For Jacob Marks, I'm Louie Guillen. Homecoming brings a lot of people to campus. Because of that, a group of students decided to advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement. Early Friday morning, students had chalked the sidewalks of Stockdale and Wallace Hall with messages supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. However, most of the chalkings done by Wallace were erased. Some students became infuriated at the sight of this, because many people assumed that administration had tried to cover up the messages for the Board of Trustees meeting that morning. Later that afternoon, President Clarence Wyatt and Dean David Timmerman were able to clarify that a single security guard had made the choice of mopping over the chalkings.
In fact, as I was walking down to Stockdale this morning for the breakfast with trustees, I saw the chalkings. I think this is our students expressing themselves about a matter of importance before our society, and spoke both with the Vice President for Finance, who's in charge of facilities, and Dean Condon, and said, hope you guys saw this. They had, and I said, let's be sure that nobody bothers. I'm confident that there is no malice intended on the part of the security guard. We will make sure that the individual understands the nature of the situation.
That took place apparently before anybody arrived to work today. And so Dean Massoud and I, in conversation, agreed that the best thing to do right then was to get back with those students, including Corindia, and encourage them to go get chalk and re-chalk it. And to my knowledge, they did that.
Yeah.
In an anonymous interview, one student said that the chalking was deliberate to the homecoming weekend due to the amount of people that would be on campus, and they were not surprised that it was gone by early that morning. During the halftime of the homecoming football game, many students wearing all black peacefully protested with fists in the air and banners with Black Lives Matter written on them. Some of the audience supported the protesters, with some telling the students they were proud and shaking hands. However, others reacted with comments like "you're blocking our view" and "all lives matter," although most of the audience seemed indifferent to the protest. Although the homecoming weekend was over, the students demonstrated they will continue to advocate for the movement, since there was even more chalking all over the front of Wallace and its surrounding sidewalks on Monday morning than there was on Friday. Although the past events have been advocating for Black Lives Matter, the chalking this morning also advocates for gays, Latinos, Muslims, and Asians. Yesterday morning, there were more chalkings done that said "All Lives Matter," but it appeared that other students had written over them with #WhiteTears and changing it to read "All lives cannot matter until Black lives do."
Organizations on campus danced and cheered their hearts out at the annual Homecoming Spirit Shout hosted by ASAP last Friday. The Spirit Shout, held on the football field, is an event to rally students for the homecoming football game. The rally was guest emceed by slam poetry artist Katie Wurzing. Student organizations also competed in a dance and shout competition against each other. Raices took second place in the dance category, and defending champions Umoja and Pain is Temporary took the crown once again. Alpha Zeta Delta won second place in the shout category, while Kappa Kappa Gamma took first. The competition was followed by the crowning of the homecoming court. Juniors John Stanford and Mallory Meisner won Prince and Princess, while seniors Alec Dutko and Abby Hubbard were awarded King and Queen. The event ended with a fireworks show. ASAP's next event will be the Carnival of Curiosity and Chaos, hosted tomorrow at 8 p.m. on the Quad.
To celebrate the start of homecoming week, organizations across campus competed in ASAP trivia on Tuesday night. Around 60 students representing 13 organizations answered questions in the Highland Room, vying for homecoming points. Questions range from Monmouth history to Broadway trivia.
I'm excited just to see it, if anyone knows the trivia. I want to see what everyone's knowledge is and how much they actually know. I think it'll be fun. I like the turnout. I hope it goes well.
In the end, Kappa Kappa Gamma won, earning their team 75 points.
What were bars like in ancient times? Last week's archaeology lecture looked at just that. The history of bars from ancient Pompeii to modern-day Dublin were talked about last Wednesday. The lecture included clips from 20th century Dublin and examples of bars in ancient Rome. The lecturers Sarah Bond and Tom Keegan talked about the history of bars in Dublin during Prohibition and how bars affected people in Rome.
Great. I think that reflecting on how we interact with people, the space around us, being extremely aware of our surroundings and our environment and how we shape that environment, but also how we come together within a larger community, the spaces that we create to come together as a community, and how we can facilitate that is something that transcends whether it's in antiquity or the modern day.
The next event hosted by the Classics Department will be Classics Day, which will be on Saturday, October 22nd at 1 p.m. on the Quad.
Taking a look at some events on campus this week. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., the Carnival of Curiosity and Chaos will be presenting a fire show on the Quad. On Friday, the carnival will continue with a sideshow at 7 p.m. in the Wells Theater. And fall break will begin next week on Wednesday at the end of the day.
Coming up after the break, Monmouth College football takes on Cornell. The Fighting Scots football team hosted Cornell College for homecoming weekend. The Monmouth offense had a record-setting day as they amassed 710 yards of total offense. On the other side of the ball, the Scots defense bottled up the Rams' running game as they held the opposition to less than 100 yards. Quarterback Tanner Matlick gave the crowd plenty to cheer for as he threw the ball for nearly 400 yards, including 3 touchdown passes. In the end, it was all Scots as they defeated Cornell by a final score of 57-14. Monmouth has a bye week, but will return to action October 15th when they host Grinnell College. On Tuesday, after the women's soccer team dropped their match against Central College, the men's team took to the field, hoping to even the score. Central's men scored first on this goal with 16 minutes left in the first half and continued to keep the pressure on the Scots defense. The Scots couldn't capitalize on their few chances, though, and trailed by 1 at the half. Neither team could find their offense in the second half, but this shot from senior Brad Dooley flew just wide, leaving the final score at Central 1, Monmouth 0.
Well, it's our 4th game in 3 days after a long trip to Wisconsin and played 2 tough teams up there. So I thought our effort was good, and we knew we were going to have to go deep into the bench, with our starters being tired from the weekend. So we gave great effort off the bench, and some guys that have seen limited minutes stepped it up and played hard. So I'm happy with their effort, but we can clean up some things going into Knox this weekend.
The Scots record now sits at 2-6-1 as they face off against rival Knox Saturday at 1 o'clock in Galesburg. That's it for sports. Here's the scores from the week. That's it for MCTV this week. I'm Tate Heupel.
And I'm Jacob Marks. Tune in 2 weeks for another new edition of MCTV This Week.
And I'm Lily Gee, and you can also watch us on the web by going to monmouthcollege.edu/mctv. Have a good fall break.